The hum of the starship engines filled the quiet cabin as Lieutenant Auric stared out of the viewport. Beyond the thick glass, a new planet floated in the black expanse of space. It was uncharted, a mystery even to the most advanced human scanners. The military had sent them here because of strange energy readings, signals that no one could explain. The crew called it Planet X-97, but to Auric it felt alive, almost watching them. "Lieutenant," a voice called. Auric turned to see Sergeant Miro, his second-in-command, standing behind him. "Sensors show enormous structures on the surface. We've never seen anything like it." Auric nodded, his heart quickening. He had trained for this, exploration missions, first contacts, and strange worlds. But something about this planet felt different. It was not the danger that made him uneasy. It was the sense that this planet had a story to tell, one that only the brave, or perhaps the foolish, would uncover. The ship descended slowly, entering the planet's thick atmosphere. The clouds shimmered in shades of blue and green, casting strange reflections across the metal hull. When the landing gear touched the ground, a soft rumble passed through the ship. Outside, the landscape was unlike anything Auric had imagined. Towering mountains rose into the clouds, and massive trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim sunlight. "Looks peaceful," Miro said, scanning the horizon. "Too peaceful. That usually means trouble." Auric ignored him, stepping onto the soft, mossy ground. Every step he took made the earth feel alive, like it was breathing under his boots. The rest of the squad followed, weapons at the ready, scanning for movement. As they moved forward, they discovered footprints, giant footprints, easily 10 times larger than a human's. The edges were sharp, as if the creature had only just left them. The squad paused, staring at the impressions. "Whatever made these," whispered Private Leon. "It's huge." Auric knelt beside the largest footprint, his fingers brushing the soft soil. There was no fear in him, only curiosity. "And intelligent," he said quietly. "Look at the patterns. They're not random. This creature knows where it's going." The squad continued cautiously, entering a clearing where massive structures rose like giant trees of stone. They were clearly made by someone or something with incredible skill and strength. The walls were smooth and curved, impossible for humans to construct. Strange symbols etched into the surface glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. "Communications are picking up something," said Lieutenant Kara over the radio. "Energy spikes." "Very strong. Could be the source of the signal." Auric nodded. He felt a strange sense of calm, as if the planet itself was welcoming him. "Stay alert," he said, though his voice carried no fear. "We don't know what's out here, but I want to understand it before we react." That night, the team set up camp near a sparkling river that wound through the giant forest. The water reflected the enormous trees and the stars above, creating a surreal, dreamlike scene. While the others slept, Auric stayed awake, staring into the forest. A movement caught his eye. A shadow, tall and enormous, stepping quietly between the trees. His breath caught. The figure was unlike anything he had seen before. It was a girl, but over 20 feet tall, with long hair that shimmered in the moonlight and eyes that glowed faintly with intelligence. She watched them, her head tilted in curiosity. The other soldiers stirred but saw nothing. Auric held his hand up, signaling them to stay quiet. Fear could wait. This was something entirely new. The alien girl took a step forward, then another, slowly. She made no sound, but her gaze was fixed on him. Auric could feel a connection, a quiet understanding that words could not reach. Unlike the monstrous beings humans had feared, she radiated calm, almost gentle curiosity. Auric wanted to speak, to communicate, but he knew words would not work. Instead, he reached for a small metal trinket from his pocket, a simple human token of peace. He placed it carefully on a rock near where he had seen her last. Then he stepped back into the shadows. Morning came, and the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Auric found the token moved. Beside it was a glowing crystal, unlike anything he had ever seen. It pulsed with soft light, a clear response. The alien girl had accepted the gesture. This is incredible," whispered Leon, who had crept closer to see. She understood. Auric smiled quietly. "Not just understood," he said. She chose to respond. The rest of the team watched from a distance, unsure whether to feel relief or fear. Some were clearly uncomfortable with the idea of being near such a massive being, but Auric felt only curiosity and hope. Here was a creature that could be an ally, not a threat, and he was determined to earn her trust. Over the next few days, Arik and the alien girl, whom he began calling Liana in his mind, communicated through gestures and small actions. He left drawings, simple patterns, and objects that symbolized friendship. She responded with gifts of glowing crystals and gentle movements. They discovered ways to share ideas without words, forming a bond that grew stronger every day. The soldiers began to notice the changes. Liana helped them navigate the terrain, using her height and strength to clear paths and point out dangers. Yet fear remained among some team members. They whispered about her size, her power, and the unknown intentions she might have. Arik ignored the whispers. Courage, he thought, was not the absence of fear. It was choosing to act despite it. And he chose to trust Liana. One evening, a sudden roar shook the forest. The team scrambled, weapons ready, but Arik held his ground. From the shadows emerged a group of enormous predators, creatures that looked part machine, part beast. Their eyes glowed red, and they advanced aggressively toward the humans. Panic spread quickly, but Arik did not hesitate. He called out to Liana, who had been watching from a distance. With a swift motion, she leaped into the clearing, towering over the mechanical beasts. Using careful, precise movements, she knocked them aside, protecting the humans without harming them. The squad watched in awe. What they had feared as a threat turned out to be their greatest protector. Arik realized that his bond with Liana was not just about trust, it was about courage, empathy, and the ability to see beyond appearances. As the sun set that day, painting the sky in fiery red and gold, Arik sat beside Liana, looking up at her enormous form. He knew the journey ahead would be dangerous. There were mysteries to uncover, creatures to face, and a planet that held secrets beyond imagination. But he also knew that he was not alone. For the first time, humanity had a chance to meet a being that was not just alien, but a friend. And Lieutenant Arik had chosen to be the one to understand her, the one to bridge the gap between two worlds. That night, under the glowing stars and the enormous trees of planet X-97, a human soldier and an alien girl giant began a bond that would change the fate of both their species forever. The morning sun spilled over planet X-97 in golden streaks, lighting the massive trees and casting long shadows across the forest floor. Lieutenant Arik woke before the rest of his team, the events of the previous night still fresh in his mind. He remembered Liana's protective stance, the way she had used her immense strength with care. Most soldiers would have fled in terror. Arik felt something else, admiration and curiosity. He stepped quietly from the camp, careful not to wake anyone. His boots sank softly into the mossy ground as he moved toward the clearing where he had first seen Liana. The forest was alive with sounds, strange bird calls, rustling leaves, and the hum of glowing energy from the alien flora. Every step brought him closer to the giant girl. Liana stood at the edge of a crystal-clear pond, her reflection stretching across the water. She tilted her head, her glowing eyes scanning the forest. When she noticed Arik, she took a careful step toward him. He stopped, holding his hands up, a silent gesture of peace. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small metal cube. It was a simple device, nothing dangerous, just a token of friendship. He placed it on a rock near the pond's edge. Liana leaned down, towering over him, and touched the cube gently with her fingers. Light sparkled from the crystal embedded in her hand, a soft acknowledgement that she understood his gesture. For a moment, there was only silence. Then she picked up a leaf the size of a car roof and laid it next to the cube. Arik smiled. It was their first real exchange, a silent conversation through actions and objects. "Lieutenant," came a whisper from the trees. Arik turned to see Private Leon hiding behind a large fern. "You're talking to her." Arik nodded, still focused on Liana. "Not with words," he said. "We're learning to understand each other in our own way." Leon's eyes widened. "Is it safe?" Arik shook his head. "Safe, maybe not, but worth it." Over the next few days, Arik and Liana developed a routine. Each morning he would bring small gifts, rocks with strange patterns, small lights, and human symbols. Liana responded with glowing crystals, leaves shaped into figures, and gestures that showed she was curious about him. Slowly, a silent language began to form, one built on trust and patience. Meanwhile, the rest of the squad watched with a mix of fear and amazement. Sergeant Miro voiced what many were thinking. "Lieutenant, this is crazy. She's massive. What if she turns on us?" Arik looked at him calmly. "She hasn't threatened us once. She helped us survive last night. Sometimes courage is about seeing what's true, not what's scary. Despite Miro's warnings, Arik continued his interactions. One day he led Liana to a field filled with strange, glowing flowers. He bent down and picked one, offering it to her. She tilted her head and plucked a flower twice her size, holding it delicately in her enormous hands. They exchanged a small gesture of understanding, and Arik realized something important. Trust could grow between even the most different beings. Their bond was not without challenges. The forest was full of hidden dangers, and Arik had to carefully teach Liana how to avoid the creatures that prowled the area. Some were fast, mechanical predators with sharp claws and glowing red eyes. Others were enormous and slow but extremely strong. Liana learned quickly, using her size and agility to move carefully through the terrain. Arik guided her, showing her patterns and paths that humans had discovered. One afternoon, a sudden roar echoed through the forest. Arik froze, recognizing the sound from the previous night. A mechanical predator had spotted them, and it moved quickly, its glowing eyes locked on the humans. The squad panicked, weapons raised, but Arik stayed calm. "Liana," he called, waving his hands. She turned, her eyes meeting his. With one massive leap, she intervened, moving between the creature and the humans. Using careful, precise motions, she knocked the predator aside without harming it. The squad watched in awe. After the threat passed, Arik approached Liana. "You saved them," he said softly. "Not out of fear, but because you chose to protect." She looked at him, and in that moment Arik felt a connection deeper than words could describe. It was trust, courage, and understanding all in one. The bond between human and giant alien girl grew stronger each day. Arik taught Liana about human ways, simple tools, symbols, and ideas of friendship. She taught him about her world, the strange energy that powered the planet, the enormous flora, and the patterns in the stars above. Their lessons were silent at first, but the understanding they shared was undeniable. One evening, the forest glowed in soft blue light, a natural phenomenon caused by the plant's energy. Arik sat on a rock watching Liana interact with the glowing flora. She touched the plants gently and they responded, pulsating in brighter light. It reminded Arik of the crystal she had first given him, the first sign of her willingness to bond. "Lieutenant," whispered Leon from a safe distance. I think I understand now. She's not dangerous, she's helping us," Arik smiled. "Yes, and if we are brave enough to trust her, we might learn more than we ever imagined." Days turned into weeks. The team explored more of Planet X-97 with Arik and Liana at the forefront. She helped them navigate massive cliffs, cross rivers wider than entire cities, and avoid hidden dangers in the forest. Soldiers who once feared her began to respect her. They saw her intelligence, her care, and the quiet courage that mirrored their own. Arik realized that their bond was more than survival. It was a lesson in courage, empathy, and seeing beyond appearances. Liana's size and power could have been terrifying, but she chose kindness. Humanity had been ready for war, for conflict, and for fear, but Arik showed that understanding could be stronger than any weapon. One day, Liana approached Arik with a small mound of glowing crystals in her enormous hands. She placed them carefully at his feet. Arik bent down, examining them. Each crystal seemed to hold a miniature world inside, glowing with life and energy. He understood immediately this was her gift, a sign of trust, friendship, and perhaps even admiration. "I'll take care of these," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "I won't break your trust." Liana tilted her head, watching him carefully. Then she stepped back, giving him space. Arik felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of pride, responsibility, and joy. This bond, fragile yet strong, had changed him already. That night, the team camped near a cliff overlooking the forest. Stars stretched across the sky like strands of silver, and Arik sat beside Liana, whose massive form dwarfed the humans. They watched the forest below, alive with glowing energy and movement. Tomorrow, Arik thought, we learn more, we explore more, and we show that courage, kindness, and trust can cross any boundary, even between worlds. He glanced at Liana, who rested her chin gently on the ground beside him. Her enormous eyes reflected the starlight. In that quiet moment, Arik understood something important. Heroes were not only those who fought battles. They were those who dared to understand, to connect, and to choose hope over fear, and he was ready. The forest of Planet X-97 was alive with strange sounds, glowing lights, and rustling leaves. Lieutenant Arik walked carefully along a narrow path, his eyes scanning the ground for any sign of danger. Liana followed close by, her enormous shadow stretching across the forest floor. Even though she was massive, she moved with surprising grace, stepping over trees and rocks without breaking a single branch. The squad moved as a unit, though whispers of doubt floated among them. Some soldiers were still uneasy about the alien girl's size and power. "I still don't trust her," Sergeant Miro muttered under his breath, glancing nervously at Liana. Arik ignored him. He knew fear could blind humans to what truly mattered, and what mattered now was survival, understanding, and trust. They reached a wide clearing where the energy signals were strongest. Strange towers of crystal stretched toward the sky, their surfaces glowing with soft pulses. The air was thick with an unfamiliar energy, humming through the forest and into their bodies. Arik knelt and touched the ground, feeling a faint vibration under his fingers. This was what the sensors had picked up, a powerful energy source unlike anything humans had seen before. As the team explored, a sudden piercing roar shattered the calm. The sound echoed through the forest, shaking leaves from the giant trees. The soldiers froze. Their weapons went up, hearts racing. Arik's eyes scanned the trees, trying to locate the source. Then he saw them. Mechanical predators larger than a human, with glowing red eyes and jagged claws. They moved with frightening speed, their metal bodies clanking as they advanced. Some seemed more animal than machine, their movements fluid, almost natural. "Attack formation," Sergeant Miro shouted. But Arik shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Hold your fire. We need to see what they want first." The predators stopped just short of the humans. They circled, sniffing, analyzing. Every soldier's heart pounded. Some aimed their weapons nervously, fingers shaking. Arik stepped forward slowly. "Liana," he called. She turned, her eyes meeting his. There was a spark of understanding between them. She stepped ahead, raising her enormous hands. The predators hesitated. Without warning, one lunged toward the humans. Liana acted instantly. She leaped, her massive body moving with incredible speed, and caught the predator mid-air. With careful precision, she set it down gently, pinning it without harming it. The other predators stopped, watching, uncertain. The squad stared in awe. What could have been a deadly encounter turned into a demonstration of trust and control. Arik realized that Liana's intelligence was as important as her strength. She understood balance, danger, and protection in a way humans could respect. Once the predators retreated, Liana lowered herself to the ground, looking at Arik as if to ask, "Are they safe now?" "Yes," Arik said softly. "You saved us. All of us." That night, the squad gathered around a campfire. Soldiers whispered about what they had seen, some still cautious, others beginning to admire the alien girl. "She's incredible," Private Leon said, his voice full of wonder. "She could have destroyed those creatures easily, but she didn't. She protected us." Sergeant Miro shook his head. "Incredible, yes, but dangerous. We still don't know what she's capable of if she decides we're a threat." Arik looked at his squad. "You saw what I saw," he said. "She's not a threat. She's our ally. We have to trust her. Courage isn't just about fighting, it's about understanding too." The next morning, Arik and Liana returned to the clearing. He brought a small set of human tools, a simple device to study energy patterns. Liana watched curiously as he demonstrated how it worked. Slowly, she began to mimic his actions, touching the crystals and tracing patterns with her enormous fingers. Arik realized that this bond was more than friendship. It was learning, teaching, and sharing knowledge across species. Liana's intelligence was extraordinary. She understood not only humans but also the environment around her. She was teaching him as much as he was teaching her. During their exploration, they discovered strange tunnels beneath the forest. The energy readings were strongest there. Arik signaled the squad to follow cautiously. The tunnels were massive, carved perfectly into the rock as if by intelligent hands far larger than any human. Glowing crystals lined the walls, casting a soft light that revealed intricate patterns and shapes. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the shadows. From the darkness, a massive predator emerged, bigger and faster than the ones before. The squad froze. Weapons raised, but they were outmatched. Arik stepped forward, holding his hand up. Liana moved silently, positioning herself between the predator and the humans. The creature lunged. With a swift, precise motion, she caught it mid-leap and held it firmly. Her eyes locked on Arik's as if asking what to do next. "Set it down gently," Arik whispered. She obeyed, placing the predator carefully on the ground. The creature hesitated. then retreated into the shadows, leaving the humans unharmed. The squad stared in silence, awe replacing fear. "Lieutenant," Leon whispered, She's amazing," Arik nodded. "She's more than amazing. She's a reminder of what humanity can be. Courageous, smart, and kind." As they continued through the tunnels, Arik noticed something unusual. The walls were etched with symbols glowing faintly. He traced them with his fingers, feeling a connection to the energy around him. Liana mirrored his movements, touching the symbols with care. Slowly, Arik realized that these markings were a language, a way for Liana's species to communicate with each other and with the environment. He looked at Liana, understanding dawning. "You're showing me your world," he said softly. She tilted her head, her glowing eyes reflecting the crystal patterns. That night, Arik and Liana rested in the tunnels. The squad stayed nearby, watching the massive alien girl as she slept, careful not to disturb her. Arik felt a deep sense of pride. Humanity had encountered many species before, but none like Liana. She represented hope, understanding, and courage, qualities that humans often struggled to achieve. As he drifted to sleep, Arik thought about the bond they had formed. It was fragile yet strong, built on trust, respect, and the willingness to see beyond fear. He knew that the days ahead would bring challenges, dangers, and perhaps conflicts, but he also knew that with Liana by his side they could face anything. The forest outside whispered with energy. Somewhere deep within, other predators stirred, watching, waiting. Yet Arik was not afraid. He had learned something important. Courage was not about fighting alone. It was about connection, trust, and the bravery to understand the unknown. And with Liana, he had found all three. The forest of planet X-97 glowed under the light of twin moons. Lieutenant Arik and his squad had set up camp on a wide plateau overlooking a valley filled with glowing flora. The air was cool and crisp, carrying faint hums of energy from the plants below. Liana sat nearby, her enormous form resting with her legs folded carefully so as not to crush anything around her. Her glowing eyes reflected the lights of the forest, bright and curious as ever. Arik watched her quietly, admiring her patience and intelligence. Over the past weeks, their bond had grown stronger. Each day they learned something new, small gestures, symbols, and silent communication. Liana had begun mimicking human actions, sometimes playfully, sometimes carefully studying the tools and devices Arik used. And Arik, in turn, had learned to read her expressions and movements with surprising clarity. "Lieutenant," whispered Private Leon, who had been sitting nearby. She really seems to understand us now." Arik nodded, still observing Liana. "Yes, and I think she's teaching us too, not just about her world, but about ourselves." The squad was slowly warming to the idea of Liana as an ally. Some, like Sergeant Miro, remained cautious, but even he could not ignore the moments when Liana had protected them from the forest's dangers. Her size and strength, once intimidating, were now reassuring. Arik stood and approached Liana. "I want to show you something," he said. He held up a small human device, a scanner that measured energy patterns. Liana leaned in, curious. Carefully, she extended a massive finger to touch the screen, watching as the lights flickered in response to her touch. "Good," Arik said with a smile. "You're learning quickly." Liana tilted her head, her glowing eyes reflecting excitement. She touched the device again, this time pressing the symbols in ways Arik hadn't expected. The scanner reacted differently and the lights shifted into new patterns. Arik realized she was experimenting, testing the limits of the technology. "You're teaching me more than I thought I could learn," he whispered, impressed. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the ground. The glowing plant swayed violently as the air filled with a low rumble. From the distant forest, massive storm clouds rolled in, dark and swirling with energy. Lightning danced across the sky in strange colors, green, blue, and gold. The storm was unlike any natural weather Arik had encountered. It carried a powerful energy, one that could affect both humans and the alien flora. "Everyone, stay close," Arik shouted. "We need to secure the camp." The squad scrambled to gather supplies, securing tents and equipment. Liana moved carefully, using her enormous hands to lift rocks and protect the smaller humans from falling debris. Arik was amazed at her calmness amid the chaos. The storm raged, but she was steady, a living shield against the planet's unpredictable forces. As the storm passed, a new challenge revealed itself. The storm had caused parts of the forest to collapse, opening deep crevices and dangerous paths. The squad needed to cross the area to continue their mission, but it was nearly impossible for humans alone. Arik turned to Liana. "We'll need your help." She nodded, understanding immediately. Using her height and strength, she created a safe path across the treacherous terrain. She carefully moved fallen trees and rocks, allowing the humans to pass without danger. The squad followed, awe and gratitude in their eyes. During the journey, Arik and Liana walked side by side, communicating through gestures and expressions. He handed her small objects, shapes and patterns, explaining concepts through demonstration. She responded with similar gestures, teaching him about the natural energy flows in the forest and how the plants responded to movement and touch. At one point, a massive cliff blocked their path. The only way across was a narrow ledge that would have been impossible for humans alone. Liana stepped forward, carefully lowering a massive tree trunk to create a bridge. Arik led the squad across one by one as Liana stabilized the trunk with her enormous hands. When the last soldier crossed safely, the humans cheered quietly, still careful not to startle her. "You saved us again," Arik said, turning to her. She looked at him, her expression calm but pleased. Arik felt a deep sense of connection. They were no longer just allies, they were partners. He realized that understanding, courage, and patience had created something stronger than fear or power. That evening, the squad reached a plateau overlooking a vast valley. Liana sat down, her massive form dwarfing the humans around her. Arik knelt beside her, looking out over the glowing flora below. The energy from the plants pulsed gently as if responding to their presence. "Lieutenant," whispered Lian, "do you think she cares about us? I mean, really cares?" Arik smiled softly. "Yes, she protects us, learns with us, and listens in her own way. Care doesn't need words. She shows it through her actions." Sergeant Miro, who had remained skeptical for weeks, finally spoke. "I don't know how you do it, Arik. I was ready to think she was a threat. But now, I see. You've built something humans rarely do. You've built trust." Arik nodded, looking at Liana. "Sometimes courage isn't just about fighting. It's about connecting, understanding, and choosing to see the good." Liana reached out her massive hand, gently brushing the shoulder of a small human soldier. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. The squad had learned to see beyond appearances, to recognize strength combined with kindness. As night fell, Arik and Liana sat together, gazing at the stars above. The twin moons cast their pale light across the plateau, reflecting in Liana's glowing eyes. Arik felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. Despite the dangers of the forest, the unpredictable storms, and the mechanical predators, he knew that together they could face anything. Tomorrow, he thought, we explore further. We learn more, and we show that courage and understanding can change even the darkest paths. Liana leaned her enormous head closer to him, and for a moment the two worlds, human and alien, seemed to touch in perfect harmony. Arik realized that this bond, fragile and strong at the same time, was the beginning of something extraordinary. Not just for him or the squad, but for all of humanity. The forest whispered around them, alive with energy, light, and life. Arik felt it too. The pulse of the planet, the heartbeat of an alien world that had chosen to share itself with them. And in that moment, he knew that the future depended not on weapons or fear, but on trust, empathy, and courage. With Liana by his side, humanity's first steps into this world were no longer tentative. They were bold, they were brave, and they were united. The valley below glowed with soft, pulsing light as Lieutenant Arik and Liana stood atop the plateau. The twin moons reflected in the crystals scattered across the forest floor, making the entire landscape shimmer like a living painting. After weeks of exploration, challenges, and growing trust, Arik finally felt a deep sense of purpose. They were close to uncovering the planet's greatest secret. "The energy readings are strongest in the center of the valley," Arik said, pointing toward a massive crystalline structure far below. "That's where we need to go." Liana nodded, understanding instantly. Without hesitation, she lowered herself carefully down the slope, creating a safe path for the humans. Each step was precise, ensuring the squad followed without danger. The soldiers, once fearful, now moved with confidence, trusting the alien girl entirely. As they approached the center of the valley, the air vibrated with energy. The crystalline structure towered above them, spiraling high into the sky. Oryx's scanner detected massive power surges. This could change everything, he whispered. If we can harness this safely, it could help colonies across this sector. The squad gathered at the base of the structure. It was enormous, far larger than any human-built tower, and etched with glowing symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the planet itself. Liana stepped forward, placing her hands on the surface. The crystals reacted to her touch, sending waves of light through the valley. Oryx stepped closer, mirroring her actions. Together, human and alien connected with the planet. The symbols glowed brighter, reacting to their combined presence. It was clear now. The structure was not just a machine, it was a living network responding to intelligence, emotion, and trust. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the valley. Mechanical predators emerged from the shadows, attracted by the energy. The squad tensed, ready for combat. But Oryx raised his hand. No, he said firmly. Liana will guide us. With careful precision, Liana positioned herself between the humans and the predators. The creatures circled, testing her, but she remained calm. Then, using gestures and movements, she signaled Oryx to step forward. Together, they activated the network. Light surged from the crystals, creating a barrier of energy that pushed the predators back without harming them. The squad watched in awe. What could have been a deadly encounter turned into a demonstration of intelligence, courage, and unity. Oryx realized then that this bond with Liana was not just personal. It represented the best of humanity: courage, understanding, and empathy. The network pulsed, projecting images and patterns into the air. Oryx studied them carefully. It was a map, showing colonies, energy flows, and hidden resources. The planet had chosen to share its knowledge, and only those who approached with trust and respect could access it. Liana's eyes met Oryx. He understood her silent message. Together, they could protect this knowledge and use it to help humanity. The squad began to understand too, realizing that fear could have blinded them, but courage and trust had opened a new path. "Lieutenant," whispered Private Leon, This is incredible. We could help so many people with this knowledge." Oryx nodded. "Yes. And it started with courage. The courage to see beyond fear, to trust and to connect. As the energy network stabilized, the predators retreated, recognizing that the humans and Liana were not a threat. The valley returned to its calm, glowing state, alive with energy and life. Oryx looked around at his squad, seeing admiration and newfound respect in their eyes. "We've learned more than survival here," Oryx said softly. "We've learned what it means to be brave, to trust and to see beyond appearances." Liana crouched beside him, her massive hand brushing the ground. Oryx reached out, placing his hand gently on hers. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes: partnership, trust, and hope. The squad gathered around, witnessing this bond. Sergeant Miro stepped forward, his voice steady. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I thought she was dangerous. But I see now. She's taught us more than I ever imagined." Oryx smiled. "That's the lesson of this planet. Strength is not just physical. True strength comes from understanding, empathy, and courage. And together, we can achieve anything." For the first time, the humans felt fully connected to this alien world. They saw its wonders, learned its secrets, and understood that collaboration, not domination, was the key to survival and growth. Liana had shown them that fear was temporary, but trust could last a lifetime. As they prepared to leave the valley, Oryx looked back at the crystal network. He knew it would continue to thrive, powered by knowledge, cooperation, and respect. And he knew that humanity had learned a valuable lesson. Courage was not about fighting alone. It was about connecting with others, no matter how different they might be. Liana followed them back toward the plateau, moving gracefully despite her enormous size. The squad stayed close, relying on her guidance through the forest. Every step was a reminder of how far they had come, from fear and suspicion to trust and understanding. That evening, they camped once more beneath the glowing trees. Oryx sat beside Liana, looking at the stars reflected in her eyes. The twin moons bathed the valley in soft light, creating an atmosphere of peace and accomplishment. "You've changed everything," he whispered. "Not just for us, but for humanity. You've shown what is possible when we choose courage and trust over fear." Liana tilted her head as if acknowledging his words. Then, with a gentle gesture, she placed a glowing crystal at his feet, a symbol of unity and the bond they had formed. The squad gathered around, seeing the crystal's light reflected in their own eyes. They understood now that this journey had been more than exploration. It had been a lesson in the best qualities of humanity. Bravery, understanding, and empathy had triumphed over fear and suspicion. Arik smiled, feeling hope for the future. Humanity had faced unknown challenges before, but this time, they had done so with a new perspective. They had met a being far different from themselves and found friendship, trust, and cooperation. As the night deepened, Arik and Liana stood together atop the plateau, looking out over the glowing valley. The forest whispered in the wind, alive with energy, light, and life. Somewhere deep within, the planet seemed to pulse in approval, recognizing the courage, respect, and unity of those who walked upon it. Tomorrow, Arik thought, we continue to explore, learn, and grow, but we do it together. Not as conquerors, but as friends, partners, and allies. And in that quiet moment, under the glowing moons and shimmering trees, human and alien stood side by side, symbols of hope, unity, and the endless possibilities that courage and understanding could bring. Lieutenant Arik had started as just one human soldier, but through trust, bravery, and compassion, he had bridged worlds, showing that humanity could rise to greatness when it chose to see beyond fear. The forest pulsed softly beneath them, alive and welcoming, and for the first time humanity felt truly at home in a world beyond its own.